Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Getting Started with Yulio webinar. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Nicole. I'm one of the client success specialists here at Yulio, and I'll be hosting today's session. So, our main objective of today's webinar is to provide a high level overview of the Yulio platform so that you can leave feeling confident to start creating your own VR experiences. So, this training will cover a lot of information today. If you have any questions that come up along the way, please feel free to enter them in the question box. And I'm going to stick around for a couple of minutes at the end of our session to answer any questions that might have come through. My contact details are also on the screen now. So if you leave today's session with any questions or you'd like to follow up even with a one on one training session later, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm also recording the full webinar today. So if you have to leave today's session early, don't worry. We'll send that recording out to all of our registrants so you'll be able to watch it later and you can share it with your team as well. So here's our agenda for today's webinar. I'm going to start off by going over a few ways that you can create content for your VR projects, followed by a quick tour of your Yulio account. After that, I'll go over some of the basics for actually creating your first VR projects and even enhancing them a little bit with hotspots. And then I'll wrap up with some different methods for sharing and presenting your projects. And like I said, there'll be time at the end for a Q&A period as well. So let's get started with creating content. So there's a few different ways that you can create content for virtual reality, including rendering VR scenes from CAD programs like Revit and even 360 photography. So, to make it as simple as possible for you to create the content you need for VR, we actually created our own plugin, Yulio Jump. So, Yulio Jump is a rendering engine which is available through the Yulio plugin for Revit, SketchUp, and CET. That being said, you don't have to use our plugin to create VR projects in Yulio. The Yulio platform is compatible with any CAD program that can produce the files you need for VR. So this includes cube maps, equirectangular images, or spherical panoramas. So to start off, I'm going to briefly go over Yulio Jump. So, like I said, Yulio Jump is our rendering engine, which is available through the Yulio Jump plugin for Revit, SketchUp, and CET. It allows you to generate the files needed for VR, um, and then it sends that content directly to your Yulio account as a VR ready experience. So, to give you an idea of Yulio Jump's capabilities, I'm just going to show you open up a project here in browser mode and show you a project that was created in Revit and rendered with Yulio Jump. So when you render with Yulio Jump, you can have Jump take care of lighting, as well as export a project floor plan and auto-generate navigation hotspots all during the rendering process. So navigation hotspots are these white circles that you see here. And then you can click on those to navigate to different scenes in your project. I'm not going to actually be covering how to render with Yulio Jump today, but I just wanted to mention it as I'll be referencing it a few times throughout our session. Later on, if you wanted to learn more about Yulio Jump, you can visit the CAD plugins page on our website. That's this page here. From this page, you can download our plugins for Revit, SketchUp, and CET. And all of them are free to install and use for anyone with an active Yulio license. And you'll also find here our user guides next to each plugin. And these include instructions for setting up and using Yulio Jump. So I definitely recommend downloading these to help you get started. And you can access the CAD plugins page here just by going to our website at yulio.com And then from the top navigation bar, selecting that resources tab and then CAD plugins. Of course, we have these um, resources available to you, but if you ever need additional support, our team is always here um, to answer your questions, or we can even set up a call to walk through it together. Now, like I mentioned earlier, you don't need to use Yulio Jump to create VR projects in Yulio. So, for example, if you have a preferred rendering engine that you like to use, you can always opt to render your VR scene files using that rendering engine. When you do this, you'll just have to make sure that the rendered files meet Yulio's upload requirements. And you can find these upload requirements on our website in our knowledge base. That's also available under that resources tab that I just showed you. So here's an example of a VR project that contains scenes rendered from 3ds Max, but they were uploaded to Yulio to create this immersive VR experience. Okay, lastly, Yulio is compatible with 360 photography. So in this case, you would take your 360 images and upload them to Yulio, and that would be how you create your VR experience. Um, each photo that you upload would represent a scene in your project. 360 photography cameras generally shoot in either stereoscopic or monoscopic. Both are compatible with Yulio. However, for a true VR experience, you'll need a stereoscopic photo. All right, now let's move on to a quick tour of your Yulio account. So when you first log into Yulio, you will be automatically taken to your projects page. So that's what you see here. This is my projects page. This is where all the projects on your account will be stored. Now, if you're creating a project without the help of Yulio Jump, you can also come to the projects page here to create a new project from scratch. So you can always navigate to the project page just by clicking on this button here at the top of your screen. And I'll just kind of one by one take you through this this top navigation menu and what you can kind of expect to see in your account. So beside the projects tab here, we have headsets. This is where you can go if you are planning to use a VR headset. You can come here to connect one or more headsets to your account. And then you can also add projects to your headsets here as well. Next to headsets, we have Collaborate. Oops, I was in Collaborate earlier, so let me just exit out of that. Okay, so here's Collaborate. This is our presentation tool, and this is where you can go to launch a Collaborate session. I'm going to return to this page later when I cover sharing and presenting your projects. Next to Collaborate, we have the Resources tab. Um, this includes direct links to the CAD plugins page, as well as the knowledge base that I just mentioned a few minutes ago. Our knowledge base is a great resource to reference if you have any questions about how to use essentially any of Yulio's features. And the last tab at the top here is where you'll see the email associated with your Yulio account. From here, if you click on the company settings tab, this is where account admins can keep track of views and manage licenses. And then from the custom branding tab here in the middle, you can actually upload your company's logo and it will appear anytime one of your VR projects is opened in browser mode or in VR. So it's just kind of a nice way to customize your VR experience for or with your own branding. Okay, so now that you kind of have a good idea of what you can expect to see when you log into your account, I'm going to take us back to the projects page and we'll get into creating and organizing your projects. So, like I said, as you start creating with Yulio, all of your projects will be organized on this page and they will be organized into folders along the left side of your screen. When you log into your account, you should see a folder at the top titled Team. This folder is public by default, and you could tell it's public because it has that person icon on it. So this folder is visible to you and anyone else that is a user on your account, if you have an account with multiple seats. The solid black folders are your private folders, which can be helpful, particularly if you have more than one team member on your account and you want to protect your projects. That being said, one thing to consider is that whether public or private, all folders are visible to anyone listed as an admin on your account. So, again, just something to keep in mind if you have an account with multiple seats. You can create new folders here as well with this create new folder button. Any new folders you create, they'll all be created as private folders, but you can make them public just by dragging them up underneath the team folder. Okay. Now let's get into creating your first VR experience. So, as I mentioned earlier, there's a couple of ways to go about this. The first and simplest way is with the Yulio Jump plugin. When you render your projects with Yulio Jump for Revit, SketchUp, or CET, a new Yulio project will be created for you in the cloud, and it will upload to your Yulio account and look something like this office project here. The second way to create a VR experience is by rendering your VR scenes with another rendering engine and then coming into Yulio and creating a new project from scratch. So, to create a new project from scratch, you would click on this Create Project button, and this will open up a new project for you in your account. So, from here, um, under the Scenes tab, this is where you would upload all of your scenes that you rendered. And then if you were uploading 360 photography, you would upload those image files here as well. Besides the scenes Beside the scenes tab, sorry, you can also upload additional content. So images, audio, video, they can all be incorporated into your project as hotspots. Um, you can also upload a floor plan here as well, or multiple floor plans if your space is multi-level. For today's training, we're going to imagine that we rendered with Yulio Jump and our project has just finished uploading to our Yulio account. So I'm going to exit out of this project and open up this office space here. So as you can see, when I open this project, my VR ready scenes that I captured in CET, uh, I'm not sure if I already mentioned, this project was created in CET and rendered with Yulio Jump. So all of the scenes I captured in CET have already been uploaded here for me. And this would be the same if I rendered with Yulio Jump for Revit or SketchUp. If I was uploading my scenes manually, I would just click on this Browse tab and then upload the files from my computer files. So just taking a look, I have 4 scenes in this project, but you can include as many or as few scenes in a VR project as you'd like. The only requirement is that you have at least 1 scene. The number of scenes you have in a project will vary from project to project and really just depends on how big of a space you're showcasing and what you want to showcase in the space. Now, scrolling up, if you take a look at all of these tabs beside my scenes tab, I pointed to these a minute ago, but you'll see all of our enhancement options. So, like I said, we have audio, images, video, audio, images, video, AR. which is augmented reality, and floor plan. We also have text, but text hotspots are created directly within the hotspot editor, which I can show you in a little bit. So, audio, image, video, AR, and text can all be incorporated into your VR experience as hotspots. So, those are clickable hotspots within your VR project. You could also add a floor plan, like I said, to your project as well. Now, you might be wondering why my floor plan is already uploaded here. This is because when you render with Yulio Jump, you actually have the option in your render settings to add a floor plan to your project during the rendering process, and that's what I've done here. One of the benefits to exporting your floor plan through Yulio Jump is that Jump will automatically add location markers to your floor plan that represent each of your scenes. So later on, your viewer can actually use those location markers to navigate to different scenes in your project. And I'll show you what this looks like again a little bit later. If you're creating your VR project from scratch, you can add location markers manually in the hotspot editor. However, of course, it's easier to have Yulio Jump do it for you during the rendering process. I also want to mention, if I didn't already, if your space is multi-level, you can add up to 10 floor plans here. Okay, under the AR models tab, you can see again, I have an AR or augmented reality model uploaded already as well. Again, with Yulio Jump, you can actually tag AR assets in your CAD model before rendering, and then have Yulio Jump generate and upload them to your VR project during the rendering process. So this AR model, which is a office chair, was generated and uploaded here by Yulio Jump along with my scenes and my floor plan. If you're not familiar with AR already, it's essentially placing a digital object overlay onto your physical environment. So, an example of AR that you might have come across before are shopping apps that allow you to try on prescription glasses or visualize furniture in your home before purchasing it. As it relates to your VR projects, AR essentially allows you to bring certain elements in your project to life for your client. So, your client can visualize how furnishings and fixtures will look in their real physical space. If AR is something you want to learn more about after this webinar, you can find instructions for tagging and exporting AR assets included in those Yulio Jump guides that I pointed to earlier. And again, those are available on the CAD plugins page of our website. We also have past Yulio Jump webinars available on our YouTube channel. So you can always look those up on YouTube. And that's like a full working session on Yulio Jump, rendering with for AR, and all of that. So you can find us on YouTube at Yulio VR. Okay, so that's all of the content we can create or generate through Yulio Jump. So that's our VR scenes, AR, and a floor plan. Any other enhancements you see here, so audio, images, video, text, they must always be created and uploaded by you if you want to include them in your project. So I am going to upload an image here or a couple of images here just to show you how you would do this and how you can add them as hotspots later on in the hotspot editor. So super simple. Let's say I want to upload image files. I can come to the image tab and then just select those images from my computer files. So image hotspots can be used for many different ways. Uh, some popular ways are you can show your client a real life product shot, you can show them a material sample, or even a before and after photo. And then now to add that image hotspot to my project later, I need to open the hotspot editor. So the hotspot editor is where you can create new hotspots or edit any hotspots that were generated through Yulio Jump. So we can open the hotspot editor just by clicking on this big blue button at the top right side of your screen. So I'm done here. I've uploaded my scenes, uploaded any extras that I want to have in my project, and now I'm going to go into the hotspot editor and add in that image hotspot and just make sure all my other hotspots look good. So here's the hotspot editor. This is, again, where you can edit existing hotspots and create new ones. When you first open the hotspot editor, you'll notice that you're standing in your first scene. And if I look to the left of my screen, you'll see all of the hotspot editing options and a few other tools along the left side. So as we look around the scene, you'll notice my navigation hotspots. Again, those are these solid white circles. Since I rendered with Yulio Jump, I chose to have Jump add the navigation hotspots to my scenes during the rendering process. So that's what I've done here, and it just saves me from having to do it manually myself. If you're super new to Yulio and you haven't used navigation hotspots yet, navigation hotspots are essentially our form of point to point navigation. Your viewer can activate those hotspots to move to new scenes, and it helps give a sense of walking around the space, especially if you've kind of placed them in a walking pattern or like a natural walking pattern. So, like I said, my navigation hotspots have been already added for me. If I were adding them myself, I would just drag and drop each thumbnail view we see here into the scene based on where it's placed. So here's view 2. It's essentially a seated view at this desk. I would just drag and drop this into my scene based on where it's located in the scene. And then I would do that for view 3 and 4. And then you also want to remember, if you have more than one scene in your project, which you should if you're adding navigation hotspots, you want to move to the next scene, and you're going to have to add in your navigation hotspots here as well. So drag in view 1 into the scene, and then view 3 and 4, and so on throughout all the scenes in your project. Okay, if we look down, you'll also notice my AR hotspot here. Again, since I rendered my AR model through Yulio Jump, the AR hotspots were placed in my project automatically. That being said, with AR hotspots and navigation hotspots, I can always come in here and make adjustments to the hotspot. So I can adjust the placement just by clicking and dragging on the hotspot. And then I can also click on this pencil icon to open up the hotspot's properties. So I can see the properties here in this left panel. From here, I can adjust the size of the hotspot, which we call the depth because it makes the hotspot appear closer or further away in VR. And we can also adjust the color here. So we have black and white as standard colors, and then you can even open up this paint tool and choose essentially any color. We can also edit the name of our hotspot here or hide the name altogether, and even add an external link. Um, for instance, if I wanted to link to the product page of this chair, I could add or copy and paste that URL here as well. And later on, if someone opened up that hotspot, they would be able to click on that link and it would take them to the product page. Okay, now if I scroll to the images tab, I can find the 2 images I uploaded a few minutes ago. Now to add these to my project, I'll just have to drag and drop them into my scene, and I can place these wherever I want to place them in my scene. So I'm actually going to go to view 3 and place the image hotspot there, or one of the hotspots there. So opening up this images tab, I'm just going to drag this image onto this shelf. So the image that I've uploaded is essentially like another variation of this shelving system. So I'm going to place it on top of the shelving system. And then once I do that, my hotspot properties will open and I can adjust the title of the hotspot. I can again add an external link. So if I want to link to the product page or any other thing I want to link to here. Um, and then I can again adjust the size of the hotspot and the color. And then just press close, and then it has been added to my scene. Uh, and this would be the same again if you uploaded audio and you want to drag and drop that into your scene or video as well. The last tab I want to show you in the hotspot editor is actually the second last tab because I'm going to go over text in a minute. So the second last tab I want to show you here is the floor plan tab, which is this map icon. So this is where you can go to add those location markers to your floor plan that I was talking about earlier. So my location markers, which are those red markers on my floor plan, they've already been added for me by Yulio Jump. But if I was doing it myself, I would just drag and drop them onto the floor plan, similar to how you can add your navigation hotspots. So you'll look at the thumbnail, the view thumbnail, and then drop it onto the floor plan approximately where it's located on the floor plan. Now, if you use Yulio Jump, it will add location markers to your floor plan if you chose to include a floor plan in the render settings before rendering. All right, I'm going to leave it at that for hotspots today. I'm just going to go over text very quickly. So, like I said, if you wanted to add a text hotspot, you would do that right here in the hotspot editor. So, you would click on this text bubble and then select create a new annotation. And then this would create a text hotspot for you in your scene where you can add the title, description. Again, you can add a link and then adjust those other hotspot properties. And then just move it around and place it in your scene. And that's it. Okay, so at this point, my project is ready and I can go ahead and view it. I'm just going to exit out of the hotspot editor for now. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can open and view your projects in Yulio, but from this project edit page here, you can just click on this view in 360 button. Anytime you see this icon here, that is to view your project in browser mode. So we're going to click on that. And here is the project in browser mode. So browser mode just essentially means that you're viewing the project from your internet browser on a desktop, a smartphone, or a tablet. So this is what the browser mode experience looks like. To look around, you can just use your mouse to click and drag around the scene. To move to a new scene, you can, like I said, click on a navigation hotspot, or you can use these next and previous scene arrows at the bottom left of your screen. So if I go previous, that will just take me to the previous scene. As I mentioned earlier, if the project includes a floor plan, as well as location markers on the floor plan, you can also navigate with the floor plan. So opening that up just by clicking on this map icon. So here is my floor plan with those location markers that were added. Now, the location markers can help us identify where we are in the space. So the scene you're standing in will be represented as a blue location marker on the floor plan. And then to navigate with the floor plan, just click on any location marker and you'll be transported to that scene. So I'm going to click on view 3. This is my third scene. And from here, I can see that image hotspot that I added earlier. So your viewer would be able to click on that and open it up. If there was an external link added here, so a URL, that would show up at the bottom of the screen and they'd be able to click on that and whatever was linked would open up in a new tab. And then if we look to the left here, I can see one of my AR hotspots. So we can go ahead and click on that and check it out. So this is what the browser experience looks like when you're viewing an AR hotspot from your computer. So it's pretty limited when you're viewing from a desktop or laptop. All you can really do is click and drag your mouse to view the object in full 360. For your viewer to interact with the object in true AR from their computer, they'll have to click on this AR button at the bottom right side of the screen. And this will open up a QR code. So what your viewer can do is scan this QR code with the camera on any compatible device. So, compatible devices would include an iPhone, Android, tablet, or certain MetaQuest VR headsets. When they scan the QR code, the AR object will open on their device and it will appear as a digital overlay on their physical environment. So, if you've joined the session, you can go ahead and try it out now. Just open the camera app on your phone and scan this QR code. If you were using a compatible MetaQuest headset, um, this AR object would open in the headset as you were. So, if you're viewing the project from a MetaQuest headset, the model, when you opened the hotspot, would open up automatically in true AR. So, you wouldn't have to worry about scanning any code. Um, but let's say you were viewing the VR project from your computer and you have a MetaQuest headset available, you could always scan this code and view the AR model on the headset. Once the AR model is open, if you've opened it up on your phone, you should be able to position the object, scale it, and you can even walk around it. Okay, I'm going to exit out of the AR model now and we'll continue on. So now that we kind of have a good idea of how to view projects, I'm going to wrap up today's webinar with some of our most popular sharing and presentation tools. So to access the sharing tools for individual projects in your account, you're going to want to start by opening the project that you want to share. So I'm going to go back to my projects page here. So just for the sake of demonstrating, if I'm wanting to share this office space project that we've been working on, I would open that in my account and I would go to or click on this share tab at the kind of top of my screen here. So here's where you'll find a few simple tools for sharing your individual VR projects. So first, you'll notice the project URL in the middle of the screen here. Each project you create with Yulio will generate its own unique URL. You can copy this URL and share it in an email or include it in a PDF proposal or a presentation deck. Anyone that you share the link with can open and view your full project, whether they have a Yulio license or not. And that's definitely the simplest way to share your VR projects, and the most common is to just share that URL link. To the right side of the URL, we have a few more kind of simple sharing tools. This first icon will open up your project's QR code. So not just the AR model, the full project. And you can download this and print it, or you can share it digitally the same way you would share a URL. QR codes are especially great to use at an event or a trade show because you can actually have this code on display at your booth, and anyone with a smartphone can scan it to have the project come up on their phone. QR codes can actually now be scanned through the Yulio Viewer app on select MetaQuest headsets, which I briefly mentioned when we were going over AR. So any viewer with a compatible headset can scan the QR code through the Yulio app on their headset, and the project will load immediately. Compatible headsets, MetaQuest headsets that allow you to do this would be more of the recent versions, so MetaQuest 3 or 3S, and I believe the MetaQuest Pro as well. Besides the QR code, we also have a text sharing tool, so you can enter your client's phone number and send the project link directly to their phone. And beside that, we have an embed tool, and this allows you to embed your project directly on your website. So, this is a great feature because you can showcase one or a portfolio of projects on your company website, and they're fully interactive when you do this. So, here's an example of what this looks like on our website. We've embedded this here on our VR showcase, and it's essentially the full browser mode experience. So, your um, client can view hotspots here, they can open up the floor plan, navigate to new scenes, and you can even click on this full screen button here and they can view the project in full screen. And that's the embed icon. If you need help with that, I would reach out to whoever manages your company website. They should be able to do this. It's not too difficult. All right, now the last feature I want to show you today is Collaborate, which you can access Collaborate from that top navigation menu. So, for those of you who haven't heard of Collaborate, it is our version of our presentation tool in Yulio. So, Collaborate allows you to meet everyone in the same virtual space to present your VR project at your own pace. You can guide viewers around the space, see what they're seeing, and collect feedback. This feature is used for in person meetings, remote meetings, and we've even used it at events. And all guests that you're meeting with, whether in person or remote, can join from a VR headset or in browser mode. You'll launch a Collaborate session just by clicking on this Start Collaborate button. And as the host, you'll always launch a Collaborate session from your browser. You can't launch a session from a VR headset, but your guests can always join from a headset if they choose to. Next, you'll just select here which project to host in. Now, something to note there is if you have a headset connected to your Yulio account and you have projects downloaded to your headset, when you start a Collaborate session, the first project in your headset gallery will auto load here by default. So that's just something to keep in mind. So once you launch the session, you can invite guests to your session from the Add Participants tab here. And then they can scan this QR code with their phone or their headset and join on their mobile device or their headset. And they can also join on their computer by going to live.yulio.com and entering that unique group code. When a new guest joins, you'll be able to see their name pop up here in the Participants tab. And you will be able to see what kind of device they're joining from as well. A new feature that is available in Collaborate is our live meeting tool. So, live meeting is a voice chat function that allows you to speak to and hear from your guests right within the Collaborate session. Live meeting works whether your guests are joining from a smartphone, desktop, tablet, or VR headset. So, it's a really great tool and very versatile. If you're using live meeting, you would just click on this start chat button, probably at the beginning of your session. And then from there, your guests would be prompted to turn on their microphone and speakers on their device to participate in the live chat. Now, in terms of actually presenting your VR project, As the host, there's two presentation modes available to you. You have present mode and explore mode. By default, collaborate sessions will open in present mode. So here are those two different versions: present, which we're now, and explore. So your presentations will always open in present mode, and we recommend starting off in this mode because it gives you, as the host, the control to guide your viewers through the experience and direct your viewers' attention to certain areas in a scene. In this mode, you'll be in full control of the presentation and how your guests are navigating through the space. Explore mode is our other presentation option that we have. In this mode, all guests that have joined your session can explore the project freely. This will include navigating hotspots and activating hotspots, and navigating to new scenes. While you're in explore mode on the host's screen, Collaborate will gaze through each guest's view every 10 to 15 seconds so you can see what all your guests are looking at and where they're exploring. And you can switch between explore mode and present mode throughout your session. Now, one thing I'll note about Collaborate, particularly while you're collaborating or presenting in present mode, is that your guest screens in present mode will not be following your gaze exactly. So you'll be in the same scene, but you may not be looking at the same area in the scene. This is mainly for our headset users, just to kind of keep them from getting nauseous in the headset if they're not in control of where they're looking. That being said, if you ever did want to direct your guest's attention to a certain area, you can use the spotlight function, which is this flashlight icon at the top right side of the screen. And if you click on this, it will direct everyone's attention in the session to uh, wherever you're looking. Aside from that, there's a lot more that you can do with Collaborate. For the sake of time today, I'm going to leave it there. Again, we have a lot of resources available between our knowledge base and our YouTube channel, so you can always look there to learn more about Collaborate. I've hosted sessions in the past, and I'll host sessions again in the future that are all about sharing and presenting. And during those sessions, we go much deeper into Collaborate and kind of what you can do with Collaborate. So we have past sessions available on our YouTube that you can always check out and watch. Of course, you can always reach out to me. And if you wanted to walk through Collaborate together, we could do that as well. Okay, I'm going to end the Collaborate session for now. And I'll return to my slides. And that will wrap up today's webinar. So thank you all for joining me today. I know that was kind of a lot of information to take in a short amount of time, but I hope that you were able to learn more about your Yulio account and how easy it is to start creating and presenting with Yulio. So if you have any questions or if you submitted questions, I'll stick around for the next couple of minutes to answer those. And as a reminder, if you wanted to book an additional training session with me, my email is up on the screen, so please feel free to reach out and I'll gladly work with you to set up a time for us to meet. And you can also email me anytime if you have questions that pop up later. I've also included our webinar schedule here on the screen. We do have a couple of more webinars coming up over the summer. So I hope to see you there, and you can always register in advance to be reminded for when those take place. So thank you again for joining me. Like I said, I'll answer a couple of questions, or I'll answer questions for the next couple of minutes if anything has come through. But other than that, have a great rest of your day.